Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. Um, I wanted to, is this recording? Yes. I wanted to, today talk a little bit about social intelligence. And it's kind of Celidia and all of us were having a discussion a little bit earlier about how, and it kind of triggered the topic for me. It was a synchronicity because what I want to talk about is how do we deal with the people in our lives when the frequency and the vibration and more importantly, the understanding that we have are not on the same vibration and frequency. And it's kind of a challenge. But before I get started with this, I want to remind you because there are so many distractions happening in the world. I mean, climate change, political, social stuff. There's so many things that are so big and so extraordinary out there that the first thing we need to do is to watch what we're feeding our soul. What kind of what are you watching? What are you reading? What are you consuming? The news that you're listening to in this day of mass media, what kind of information, what kind of program are you listening to? What kind of books are you reading? And what kind of conversation that you're having with people? And all of that will begin to affect where your consciousness goes. So for me, I'm finding that, and my family's Marjorie's concerned for me because she keeps saying all the time, you're a recluse. You spend so much time alone that you should have more of a social life. And some degree, she's correct. And part of it, it's because as you evolve spiritually and the deeper the work is, the more profound, the more you surrender, the more you let go, the more you become more spiritually evolved, the less you have in common with the people that are around you. And when you are socializing with them, the more you realize, I am here because I want to have a human interaction, but I have very little in common with these people. I have history with them. I remember having fun. I remember having conversation, but what they're interested in and the level of conversation and what they're concerned and the comments that they're making is not on my vibration. It's not on my frequency. I don't have the threads of commonality that I had with them or getting cut day by day. And I have to say this to you because I'm experiencing this. And I was sharing early on with my sister, and I remember saying to her, if I were to wait for the perfect friends to come to me, I can count maybe in one hand how many people that would be at my level. Aside from this, I have to realize that when I go into the world, when I go outside, when I socialize and I hang out with friends, and I do have friends that I hang out with on a daily basis, they are not on my level. And it's not a read, it's a matter of fact, and they know this. They ask me a lot of questions, but sometimes it feels like I'm spoon feeding too much. And I had that experience the last 2 days or 3 days because I had to realize, okay, you got to stop. And what I do, because I care for the both of them, I have two friends I'm hanging out with, I care for them a lot. And a lot of times I try to prod their comfort zone a little bit further than they are comfortable with. And I have to be very careful. And it's so funny because one of them, I was talking to her, and I had to do a lot of Ho'oponopono to her when I realized I was pushing her too much. Because she asked the question and I was trying to answer, and she said something else. And I said, well, I don't believe what you're saying is true, because from my perspective, and I began to express, and she became very defensive. And I realized, okay, I have to dial it back. And I responded also trying to illuminate my point, and I then illuminated it again, and then she responded, and I was like, okay, I had a conversation with myself, back off, back off. You're trying to push her. It's your control, your desire to control and make her go in your bus, because she's not on my bus. She and I are not going in the same place. She loves to read. She's a spiritual person, but we are not at the same frequency. And so I have to allow her the honor to make her own mistake and to pave her own path. And it is an honor. Instead of me trying to lay the path for her and try to constrict her and funnel her into a preconceived path, she needs to figure it out on her own. And it's it's kind of funny, because my sister and I were talking earlier, and she went to a party, and she said, I went there because I wanted to socialize with people, but the level, what she observed and how people were behaving, and there was a lot of youth there, and what was their concern. She said, they're not, I realized they're not on my vibration. And it's okay, because we still need to have interaction with other human beings. As we refine our consciousness and elevate more and more, we're going to notice that we have less and less in common with the people around us, except for a small community once a week when we meet together. But it's not healthy for you to remain like I have done since for 4 years now, which is to lead a sedentary life, to basically isolate myself and go out to do my shopping and go once, for my go in the park to have my meditation, and then that's it, and no social life. That's not healthy, because you need to have human interaction. Now, the way we learn, just for you to know, is that we learn by having people around us that push us out of our comfort zone. This is the way we learn from each other. That's the reason why there are multiple of us, and there are 9 billion of us, and there's enough differences for all of us to get something from somebody. And in this instance, that just happened 2 days ago, I realized that I was being intolerant and even to a degree controlling and even judgmental. And I had to dial it back. I caught it. This went on for 10 minutes. I caught it. I was like, okay, you're pushing her too much. She's not prepared. She's not ready. Just dial it all back, and let her find this path, this insight you're trying to bring her. She's not ready to hear you, because the way she's combating and resisting, she's not ready. So let it go. And it's a huge lesson, for me anyway, because, after a certain while, because if I was in my apartment, I would have known that back door is still open for me. I thought I had licked it. I'm tolerant, I'm accepting, I'm non-judgmental. I thought I had all of that. But the fact that you have people around you that are different, that difference will trigger you, so that you can go outside of your comfort zone and discover other things about your spiritual psychology and the rich tapestry, because everyone will push a different button. And through the interaction and the social and interaction with other people, you can begin to realize a lot of things about your own consciousness and where you stand and what's important or not important to you. And to the degree that you feel that you have to change someone else, or they have to do everything according to your script, it's to the degree that you are not at rest and at peace with yourself. Because the more agitated, and I didn't get emotional. I remember I caught myself, and I remained silent for about 5 minutes. I let her talk. And she explained to me why this is important to her and she has to do it this way and all of that. And she began to talk about it. And I remained very silent. And in my mind, I kept saying, please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. Please forgive me. I love you, and I let go. As my Ho'oponopono to her, to allow her to allow myself to detach from my own desire, to prod her to move in a direction that I felt was for her greater growth. It's not up to me. It's up to God to do this. But we all have the instinct to try to be God's assistant. We all have that instinct that we are God's assistant and we know exactly what the planet and the world need. And in this instance, it was not wanted. It was not wanted. And so therefore I had to dial it back. I had to step back and say, let her do what she needs to do when she wants to do it. And for the rest of all the next 35 minutes, she kept on talking about the topic and explaining. I just stopped responding. I said, yes, I got it. Yes. And I said nothing. I just did not respond anymore. As a way to give her the room to, she was defending herself, she was explaining herself, she was, and I simply stopped because it's clear that she wanted, she was trying to, she's not ready. Whatever it is that I understand, she doesn't understand it in the same way. And I have to give her the space to arrive the same way God reached me and I arrive at my own conclusion. God can reach her and she can arrive at her own conclusion. Although it was her that asked me the question. Sometimes people ask you a question and when you're ready to give them the answer, they are not ready for the answer. So we have to understand this. And when we begin to talk to them, depending on how they react, we have to be socially intelligent. And this is why I want to talk about social intelligence today. We have to be socially intelligent enough to understand, depending on the tone of their voice, whether they're being defensive or the body language, if they're crossing their arms, or if they're crossing their leg, or if they're looking another direction, if they try to change the topic, or if they're being louder and more combative, drop it. Walk away, drop it. Drop it. They are not ready to have the conversation with you. It's not worth it to get yourself agitated, even though they may have asked you a question. It's not worth disturbing your own peace. Now, as I said, my part is that, and I'm acknowledging my part, there was a part of me that wanted to move the needle for her and move her, expand her. There was a part of me, my ego-related part, that wanted to move the needle for her and make her understand something else. I'm acknowledging that. And I caught it. Within 10 minutes, I caught it. I was like, okay, this is Pierre's ego that's reacting here. I need to dial it back. I need to let her. And again, to find somebody on your exact level, giving all the work that all of you have done, it's going to be extremely complicated. And you need to understand this so that when you're socializing with people, you will rarely find somebody that checks all the boxes. In fact, I can tell you, in terms of romantic and social romantic partners, all the people that I know that claim that they had found their soulmate, where all the boxes were checked, all of them that I know have or in the process of separating. Because when you have somebody that is exactly like you, the intensity of mirroring each other over and over again is too much. And after a while, the intensity is so strong that you need to have a breather. Because when you have somebody that's really part of your monad or soul family, and you begin to have an intimate relationship with them, that person and you there's no boundary. Whomever that we're with, in whatever relationship we're in, we need to have boundaries. We need to feel at the moment, I need to be alone in the relationship, separated from my partner. I think it was Khalil Gibran that was describing marriage, and I'm going to badly paraphrase. He was saying that marriage, when you're getting married, you should be like two columns holding the same roof. There should be air between you. I thought that was a beautiful description of what a partnership should look, a real partnership should look like. So, but when you're with somebody that checks all the boxes, and the both of you on the same frequency, what happened? There's too much echo. And when they're in your dreams and you and them are dreaming the same dream, I've had that happen to me before. When you and them are dreaming the same dreams, whenever it gets too much, it gets to a point where it's so much that you're gonna desire, both of you will desire, we gotta break up. We gotta create the air between the two columns because it's too intense. On the other hand, you're gonna end up also meeting, as I said, nice people. The friends that I have now are wonderful human beings. They're not bad people. They're kind. They're loving. They're giving. They're charitable, but they're not on my vibration and my frequency. And I'm maintaining friendship with them because we need to interact with people, and through the process of the interaction, they're gonna prod me. For example, in this instance, I may have attempted to prod her and expand her a comfort zone, but in that process of that attempt, she made me discover that I was not as clean and as saintly as I thought I was, because it was coming from my ego. She revealed to me a stain or a defect in my spiritual psychology that I need to work on. I need to realize that in my interaction with her and with other people, I need to become a little bit more tolerant. And if I bring a topic up and try to drop a piece of information, and the person begins to resist, instead of, because this went on for 10 minutes, I tried to really, she said something, I said something, it was escalating. And I got to a point where I realized, wait a minute, this is escalating into something else. This is becoming an argument. I need to step away. And for the rest of the conversation, I simply withdrew. I said the wonderful silently to myself, and I let her speak. She defended for the next half hour. Until the end, we separated, I hugged her, and then that was the end of that. And I'm not gonna bring it up again. The lesson is about me. Because if she triggered me because I was trying to push her, it's not about her, it's about me. So we should be aware that in our interaction with others, we have to have our social intelligence filter there. Now, how do we know all of these things emotionally? It's through the amygdala and the mirror neuron that can sense what someone else is sensing, that can feel what someone else is feeling, and that can sometimes project an insight and a knowing that we have in our heart into someone else. And this is the way someone can do a remote healing and can do can begin to change the frequency of the vibration that someone else has. Okay? And I would never try to intrude on somebody, but she did ask. So I would never try to intrude into somebody by telling them something that they don't desire. For the most part, when I'm interacting with people socially, when I was younger, I was different, but of late, when I'm interacting with people, unless you ask me, I'm not going to volunteer information. If you ask me, and if you really ask me, I remember the same group of friends, a couple of times in the past, they had asked me a question. I just looked at them, I said, how far do you want me to go down the rabbit hole? Because I can go really deep with this. I warned them. And then in this instance, they were prepared, they were willing to listen. I then went deep to describe what I was describing to them, and they listened very attentively. But they all, in this most recent instance, with my friend, the other friend was not there. She was not ready to hear what I had to say. And I personally was coming from a place of trying to dislodge our belief system, her own belief system, and move the needle for her somewhere else. And that was my responsibility and my error. So I have to watch out when I hang out with her in the future that I don't do this anymore. Because I guarantee you, if it happened once, the universe will bring you back up again several times. Because we think we understand and we learn, we don't learn. The subconscious mind will bring this up will set it up for me, because it's not about her, it's about me learning. It's not about her, it's about me learning how to be more accepting and tolerant on others, rather than trying to force and knowing that I know into someone else. Right? And so it will come up again multiple times, and I have to catch it and not let my desire to help her, to bring her on my bus. I have to make sure that that desire is not forcing my insight into her. Any questions or any comments? Now, what's going to help as well, we were talking a little bit about this before we started recording. What's going to help as well is the spiritual practice that you have. That if you're really maintaining a routine and spiritual practice, you will catch yourself faster than if you were not doing it. Okay, if you keep maintaining yourself, if you keep doing what you need to do, if you keep, like in the morning, we talked about the breath control, doing the 12 breath, breathe from the core of the earth, let the breath move through you, expand and passing through your core, your entire body. Like we talked several classes back about the fact that our breath is the way, it's a continual rebirth. Because if a soul enters the body of a child, once the child is born out of the womb, with the first breath, when the child exhales, the soul also leaves and goes back into source, but it's still connected by the silver cord. But it exits out and goes back into source completely. And when the child inhales again, it comes back. So through the cycle of exhalation and inhalation back and forth, if we do it consciously, we can begin to notice the various stages of our breath and the value that this will have in your spiritual life. Now, if you would like me to, I can go over these again and to try to clarify some of these finer points, and so that we can begin to reestablish a better spiritual, clarify a better spiritual, daily spiritual practice for all of you. What do you think?
Sorry, Pierre, your question is, what do we think about establishing a better spiritual practice? Well, of course, yes. But what were you suggesting we do?
Okay, so one of the things that I do on a daily basis, thank you, Janice, that I do is this. When I wake up in the morning, it's the breath control. Because if prayer is talking to God, meditation is listening to God. And the way you do this is by actually connecting to your breath. There are multiple meditation techniques there where you stare, where you repeat mantras. There are multiple. And I'm going to give you the easiest one that I know of for being of Western mind. I don't do the, sitting on the floor with the lotus position or all that. I'm not a yogi. I find it I've tried it, but I find it very painful on my back. I sit in a chair. I make sure the chair has a straight back. I'm sitting straight, not laying down. And if you slouch over slightly, that's fine. You don't want your head to be back this way, because if you do this, you're gonna block your airway. So the breath is the way that connects us to source. So when a child is born, when the child inhale, the soul is not attached to the child when the child is in the womb. The soul enters with the first breath. When the child breathes, the first breath, the soul goes in. But when the child exhales, the soul also leaves the body and goes into source. So there is a constant rebirth process with every breath. Children do this naturally. They take full breath, they take complete breath, and they inhale and exhale completely. If you notice, when a child is about to cry, they don't, we as adults, over time, we learned how to breathe shallow. So we are mostly upper chest breather. So we inhale and exhale only for the upper chest, whereas a child breathes from their belly completely. So if something happened to them, they're about to cry, they inhale completely and their belly goes up, and then and they start screaming and yelling, and they sustain that sound because the sound comes from the belly. Okay? Once they finish exhaling and everything goes out, they inhale again and it comes back in, they start again. So their soul is traveling back and forth. Think of it as bookend, right? So the breath control that I want to very quickly go over, because I start with that first. And it's literally about 3 minutes, no more than that, okay? The cycle that I do. So I think of my lung or the antecorona or window bridge. Hold on a second. 1 second, please. So the breath control that we do is important. So we think of the chakra column where 7 chakras are. At every dimension, we have 7 chakras. So if you can think of the Russian nested egg, you and I being the smallest figurine, above us in 4th dimension is another higher body that has another 7 chakras. So if chakra 1 being at our seat, chakra 7 chakra being at the top of our head, there's a chakra 8 to 15. That's the 9th, the 4th dimensional body. There's a chakra 16 to 22. Next nested egg, and so on, all the way back to God. That entire column is called the antecorona, or sometimes referred to as the rainbow bridge or the silver cord. But it begins in lower body, 2nd dimension, 1st dimension, it goes all the way into the core of the earth. So when you're taking the breath, you're going to imagine that column existing inside of you, and you're going to take the breath from the core of the earth, and you're going to inhale from the center of the earth. And then there is a retention to the breath. So to do this correctly initially, you have to realize that there are a couple of caveats that I need to give you. And the first caveat is this. We need to understand that there is 4 parts to a breath, and we need to understand as well that the first few times you try to do this, it's gonna feel uncomfortable because we are all upper chest breathers, and therefore we have scar tissues. There is pollution around us. Some of us have past life in which we were suffocated. That's going to cause all kinds of memory when we try to breathe correctly, and trigger certain things. And it's going to feel that there is tightness and restriction as we inhale. Okay? So you're gonna imagine that anticoagulation, that rainbow bridge, or for that matter, if it's easier for you, imagine your lung is a pipe that goes from the core of the earth all the way back into God. And you're gonna inhale. And then after you inhale fully, you gotta fill your lung, belly included, everything. When you inhale, after you inhale completely, there's gonna be a pause. What is called the retention of the breath, there's gonna be a pause. And then after the pause, you're going to exhale, and then there's going to be another pause. So there are 4 parts to this, right? Inhalation, pause, exhalation, pause, right? So if you can do this, so you're going to inhale from the core of the earth, pause, exhale, pause. But when you're exhaling now, as you project the air, as you take it up, and you're exhaling now, you're following what the silver cord wants to do, which is to take the air from the core, from the earth, from Shakti, from Gaia, and take it back into source. So as you exhale, you're going back into source where the soul came from. And then there's going to be a pause at the end. At the pause at the end, you're going to wait to feel repair and benevolence. In other words, at the end, there's going to be a surrender. As you exhale, there's going to be like a surrender, a letting go, a release. And when that release happens suddenly, you're going to inhale now from source, from God. You're going to inhale, and the benevolent, the benevolence that you need is going to come back in, and you're going to bring that inhale from source and then bring it back into your body. Exhale and pause, and then exhale and drop it back into the core of the earth. And you're going to do 6 cycles of those breaths. I'm summarizing what should take 4 weeks for me to teach you, but I think I've spoken about this before. But correct me if I'm wrong, so that I can go slower. But I'm hoping this is just a reminder. Did I speak about this before? I think I have.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Okay. So I wanted to bring that up because I wanted you to understand that how important that daily practices. It takes maybe 3 minutes, 4 minutes at the most. Don't worry about how long it takes you to inhale, to pause, to exhale. Initially, just make sure you're aware of the 4 parts, that you're inhaling, you're pausing, you're exhaling, and you're pausing. And if you can do that on a daily basis, and then again, you're going from the core of the earth into source, and then you're going from source and bringing it back into the core of the earth. And the reason for this conscious awareness to follow the natural flow of your breath, it's because when you inhale from the core of the earth and move the exhalation outside of your body, you are taking all your burden, all your fears, all your panic, including the fact that in your lung there may be constriction and tightness, that you need to exit outside of your body. And you're going to allow it to go and to be exhaled, to be pushed all the way out. And when you get into source after the second retention and you exhale and you hold, you're going to feel, if everything was solid, when you exhale, it's going to feel like you're giving it, like there's a sigh. When you feel that, the solution set and the healing, because you're in source at that moment. In other words, what I'm trying to tell you, your breath is directly connected to God. And every breath you take is connecting you directly to God. You're not separated from God. You never were. None of us are. The fact that we think we are is an illusion. Our breath, inhalation and exhalation connects us every time we inhale and exhale.
Question.
Yes.
Um, since you've been talking, I'm thinking of something that happened today, and a friend of mine that have their mom is about 103 years old,
Yes.
and the mom sometimes, you know, she recognize them, she speak to them, I mean, you know, it's not that she have dementia, but she can talk to them normally, and but the point is, she was telling me today that a mom at time give those like yell, like she's yelling, okay, and and she's also apparently been sleeping a lot too, okay, and I was telling her, uh she was telling me, she was asking her, she never asked her what's wrong, but rather like you know, going like, oh mommy, what's wrong, like, you know, she doesn't say what's wrong, but the way she put it, it's that she doesn't know why she's yelling like that,
Mhm.
because on one instant she was eating, the other instant she was not eating, she was whatever it is that she's doing, sometimes she gives those yell, those thing, and I'm like, okay, it could be that she's hallucinating. Did she see something? Is it, do you feel like the yell is some kind of a fear? Or do you feel like the while she's yelling, this is something that has to do with her breathing? I asked her that question,
Mhm.
and she said that she doesn't know. So my question to you is that, since you're talking about, because she's on the last stage, really, if you're really looking at it, 103 years old. So I'm thinking while you're talking about this, d- if this can be related to the fact that the breath of life, because apparently she doesn't want to let go too.
Yeah. Yeah, she's fighting back, and my recommendation, not knowing the person, is that the daughter needs to observe very, very carefully and see where they are. And one other thing I was suggesting is play spiritual music or do spiritual
Yeah,
stuff with her.
I,
Sure,
I
because
did that.
she's in fear. She's in fear.
I did that. I did that. Because before she was always in a panic mode,
Yeah.
and I told her that, you know, you got to play spiritual music. Whatever, because the daughter
She's
is on
already
another.
dying. She's going through the death process. Okay.
Yes, yes,
She needs.
yes. I believe that for a long time now.
She needs to uh, have the people around her surround her with love and surround her with this the God concept,
Confidence.
the
Yeah.
God concept that she is used to. Whether
Yes.
it's Christianity,
Okay.
whatever it is, that God concept must be around her.
Yeah.
It's,
So I've been guiding them well then.
yes,
Thank you.
yes, yes.
I've been guiding them well because I've been telling them that, and apparently she got better, and I've been telling them that you've got to talk to her in a way, telling her that everything is going to be all right.
Yes.
Everything is going to be all right. Not you know.
And don't be afraid and let go. Let go.
Yeah,
It's okay
yeah,
to let go.
yeah.
Everyone
No,
is
but it's that scream
she's
that she's saying that
afraid. She's afraid.
uh
She's afraid of death.
yeah. Okay. I thought it had to do with the breathing process,
No,
and
it does have to do with the breathing process, but okay. When the Tibetan book of the dead goes in great length to describe to someone, when someone is dying, you don't lie to them. You tell them so and so is so son or daughter of a noble family, you're dying. And
Yeah,
you tell them directly what's going on. And-
yeah.
And you try to get them prepared and ready for the process. I don't know if she can have that conversation with her or if she's not gonna be.
I think she can. I think she can because sometimes she asks the daughter, "What am I still doing here?"
Yes.
She does ask that question.
So it's okay to
What
let
am I still doing here?
so it's
What
okay
it's
to let-
time for me to go. She say
Yes.
that.
and yes, mommy, it's okay for you to go. Encourage her.
Yeah,
And bring
yeah.
spirituality next to her. Or I don't want to make the class about this woman. Okay.
Correct, correct. All right. Thank you.
Okay. No problem. So so the breath and the inhalation and the exhalation is extremely important. And once you have mastered it, it is something that should take you no more than 4 minutes to do, to complete. Okay? And once you have done this, the way I do it, once I've done this, then my core, because the breath takes my fears out and release them back into source. And then I bring from source the repair. By the way, when the repairs are coming in, let's say I had a fear that was lodged in my heart, in my kidney, etc. When I inhale back, I don't inhale and then pause and exhale. I bring the inhalation, let's say the problem was in my throat, where the resistance was, or in my lung that I was feeling tightness, or in my kidneys. I inhale, I bring it back where I felt the resistance, and then I pause, and then I exhale from there into source, and then I pause again. Okay? That way, the repair that I need, which is the invert, the scalar invert to what I was feeling I was holding in my body, is brought back to the location that I needed. As you do this initially, your lungs are gonna feel, it's gonna take some acclimation if you have never done this, because your lungs, you're gonna feel, a lot of my students are asking me, I should inhale for how many seconds? You should inhale until you feel you're done inhaling, it's time for you to move to the next phase. I don't want to say to you, do it for 3 seconds or 7 seconds, and you feel like you're suffocating. It should be a natural, do not force anything. It should be done naturally. Now, once these 6 cycles, inhalation, exhalation, one breath going into source, another breath returning as 1 cycle, 6 of them, so 12 in total. Once it's done, then what I do is that I can feel my antakarana completely open, my connection to God completely open, and I sit in my core, in my 3D body, and I begin to silently assess what's going on inside of me. I'm beginning to listen to my core. What's going on? Where am I? Am I feeling anything different, special, and different? What's going on? And I begin to assess. Then once this assessment is gone, or finished, or terminated, then I move in. And for me, the assessment can take another 2 minutes, 3 minutes, depending, maybe 5 minutes at the most. So now it might be a total of 10 minutes. Then when that is done, I can move into doing the torsion field. Now, the torsion field, the breath I just described to you, is the foundation exercise for everything. Because the torsion field is a slightly different thing. It is still coming from the core of the earth, but this time, instead of me moving the breath from Shakti, from the Gaia, I am asking the Guardian Alliance of Light to bring their shield of neutrality, and when the energy goes up from the core of the earth and moves through the bottom of my feet, it's now counter-rotating. It's a vortex, rather than just energy rushing in. This time it's spinning. And when it moves through me, it goes back again into source, and I release it into source. And when it's released at the last retention, it turns into a donut, an energy donut all around me, a torsion field. And then once I feel acclimated to this and I can feel the neutrality of the guardian, I then see or connect to the next vortex that comes into source, cascading invertly and therefore rotating clockwise as a spinning spiral coming down, moving all the way into the core of the earth. And when it arrives on the core of the earth, on top, nested on top of the first one, so the center of the nuts open up slightly and it moves into the space. And once it's nested on top of the first one, it creates from the core of the earth a torsion field, and it rotates. It counts. So the first one counterclock, the second one clockwise. And then you do 12 of those breaths. Any questions, any comments?
Yes, I do have an observation and a question. I think I just realized that when you said that the universal breaths connect from the core of the earth through the first and second dimensions into your third dimensional body and upward, that it must mean similarly that as the exhale goes to source, it must pass through all the upper dimensions as well. And so those of us, that part of us that is in all of those dimensions, as I believe you've said in the past, that must be enlivening, if you want maybe a better word than that, but helping that part of us in all of those dimensions, then in that Antakarana connection to source.
Absolutely, John. It's dead on, okay, as usual. Great comment, because what happened is that fourth dimensional body, right? There's 7 chakras that are there, chakra 8 to 15. So those chakras exist in a part of ourselves that's in that fourth dimension, but that part of us may not be completely neutral. It may not be completely neutral to the guardian that exists in that fourth dimension. This is why every time the wording for the connection to the guardian alliance of light to do the torsion field, we say initially when they first come in, please forgive me for that dimension. So when the first guardian comes in the fourth dimension, what do we say? Please forgive me, I love you, and I let go. Because we have to become neutral to them. And when you do the torsion field, it could be in the 5th guardian, the 6th guardian, the 8th guardian, or somewhere. There's always a torsion field when it's get to be created. It might be 1 or 2 of them where all of a sudden we're having experiences that are not neutral, either because we feel a jarring or we see images or things that are more combative, that are not neutral. It's because the part of us that exists in that dimension is not neutral to the guardian, or is not in neutrality. Not yet. And as we keep doing this over time, it will eventually become neutral. But initially, when you start doing this, it's not going to be, there are certain, when you call the guardians in, you will notice that. And the reason why we're doing the breath to go into all the higher bodies in the higher dimension, it's because we're trying to encourage those parts of ourselves that are not in neutrality to become neutral. You're absolutely right, Janice.
That presents and prepares, in my mind, a whole other dimension of this practice. A question that comes to mind for another period, for another class, is if we are in all dimensions and we're looking at ascension, do we never leave any of the lower dimensions, even though our our current third dimensional self that we are at least consciously aware of is what I guess will be ascending. But if we exist in all of them, then we we never leave the lower dimensions. But that's a question for another class.
Janice, no, it's not a question. Let's tackle this right now. You're asking it now. Let's tackle this right now.
I love that question. I
Okay,
really
okay. So here is the answer. Quantum physics superposition. It's a shift of consciousness. We exist everywhere in the universe at the same time. And the reason we are experiencing ourselves in the 3D is because we are creating, our consciousness is creating a singularity of expression in 3D. After doing enough work in the 3D reality, surrendering to all the practice, the Dantian, all of the stuff that I've taught you, this practice as well, the torsion field, we will release enough shame and enough undeservedness to dislodge our conscious awareness of singularity into an acceptance of multiplicity. And when that happens, our awareness just shift from one place in the universe to another, like a back of an eye, like an electron that's one part of the universe and flipped into the other side. It doesn't mean that that awareness cannot go back. It can go back at any time it wants. But since we're trying to ascend, not descend, hopefully, we're going to shift upward. Did that answer your question, Janice?
Oh, it's fascinating to me, and it does somehow still leave questions in my mind. If that electron bounces to a higher dimension, now it has got creative sort of dealing with releasing in that dimension, but it still exists in the lower dimension because it exists everywhere.
Yep.
How does that eventually allow us to return to source? We're already in source, okay? So
the source is everywhere.
I mean, so what are we doing here? I mean,
Yes, so we are in a dream. It's an illusion that we have created as a way to teach us to remove undeservedness and shame. We're everywhere and source is everywhere.
so this is an exercise in learning what we should already know.
Absolutely.
And all of the ascension to higher dimensions is all just releasing and learning to accept the multi-focal point of being already in source. It's not anything less than that major achievement.
Plato said it. Knowledge is remembering.
Mm.
It's all remembering. It should feel like you're inhaling and exhaling. And if it's different, it's not from God. It's not natural.
Mm.
Pierre, can I say something?
Sure, kid.
Well, isn't Janice you're the wonderful singer?
Well, thank you. I'm a singer.
Yeah, well, I mean, isn't it just similar to a bass note going to an octave and up another octave? It's still a note in the voice of one. So if we raise our frequency, it's still only oneness of our own soul. And yet my question to you, Pierre, about the multiple is like, since we've had different lives and we come into this life, are we, like in Taoism, you raise your frequency through the mudra so that you can make better decisions, in resolving the past life issues that come back to this life. So is that part of the multiplicity?
Yes, and the past life issues or me being pushed out of my comfort zone with my friends and family. This is your karma. This is how you resolve it and make better decision than you did the last time.
Right, because that's the whole point in Taoism is in that practice, which I've been a part of, with the three treasures with Kuan Yin, is to help ourselves rise, and receive a type of grace to
Yep.
be able to calm the old decision and make a new decision.
Right. And that grace will come in when you do the practice I'm describing now, the breath control. It will give you the clarity to understand where you've been in error.
Okay,
It will give you that insight. You will understand, wait a minute, that was my ego. I don't need to do this. I can.
right.
Because when you go into the surrender, by the way, in the breath, the second retention, when you inhale, you pause and then exhale. That second retention, that's when the insight always comes in. It always comes in at the second retention. It's almost all of a sudden it's the so-called the place where you get the download.
Okay,
And that second retention, it's because you're in source at that moment. And when you're in that source, all of a sudden, the solution set that you need. Source is so infinite and vast that it will give you exactly the solution set that you need if you can listen. So that's why after the breath control, I said for about another 5 minutes, listen to your call. That at that moment, it's a self-assessment. And at that moment, if you're doing it correctly, what's going to happen is that you're going to all of a sudden listen to yourself as if all your entire antakarana and core had ears. You have no agenda. You're just listening to what God is trying to tell you. And whatever correction you need to make, whatever adjustment you need to make, that information was going to come.
I got it. And sometimes that happens to me when a lot's going on, when I take a shower.
Yes, because shower water is a medium. Yes.
Right, and I guess especially living in the desert and being water sign, it's like a deep insight will come flowing through me about something that I've been, intellectually searching for an answer for, but been in emotional conflict, and then a better answer or source will send a message.
Yes. Yes. And at that moment, you make a decision. Say, okay, I'm going to follow that prompting. Spirit is guiding me to do this, and then you do it, and you move on. And this is the way we improve. And to that improvement, and inch by inch, moment by moment, better decision by better decision, we get to a point where the blockage that was holding us in singularity, focusing only in the 3D, will expand into multiplicity. And at that moment, we can leave and go anywhere like a snap.
Okay, that's a very beautiful.
You're welcome.
It's reminding me of share with the class that years ago I was at the social services office here in San Bernardino when dealing with this need for medical care. And somehow the person behind, we were waiting in a long sitting area, and that's when the gentleman behind me, remember, and I were talking, Pierre, and he said that he'd read your book in prison.
Mm.
Remember, that was so touching.
Yeah, I was totally shocked when you told me that story.
Yeah, that the prisoners had a copy of Pierre's book, Primer for Ascension, and it was helping them get out of the prison they were in physically and mentally.
Yeah. And that was totally shocking to me. Yeah. Thank you, Kit.
Yeah, it was really amazing.
I don't want to belabor and delay the class, but could I just ask one more question about the illusion of our dimensional realities that we perceive anyway, are ascended masters, the guardians, Alliance of Light, the galactic, whatever the hierarchy, are they all an illusion too, or have they completed their ascension and are now free of the illusion of separation?
None of us are separated. We're all dreaming that we're separated.
The illusion of it is what I was thinking, that we're trapped in this illusion as we are ascending through the dimensions, right?
So we're dreaming, I'm dreaming that I'm separated from Janice, from Kit, from all of you, but we're not separated. We belong. If you can think of a murmuration of starling, where all of the birds are moving information with each other, completely surrendered to a morphogenic, bigger awareness. None of them ever collide with each other. And they're so deeply surrendered that they allow themselves to go with that surrender. When you're part of that collective awareness, that's the way it is.
So that's where the galactic masters, that's where they are. They are no longer in an ascension process like we are.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they're a different level of ascension. Okay. Planetary masters have elevated. They've had. Okay. Once you achieve the 12th level initiation, you begin your ascension. This is only the beginning.
Oh. Talk about the Russianness.
No. Seriously, you have to understand this. This is the beginning. You've entered, and they are higher and higher and higher level. So the planetary masters are eyeing their solar initiation. The solar masters are eyeing their galactic initiation, and so on and so forth, all the way back to God.
Wow.
All happens in degrees because it's more adjustment we need to make to let go of because when we descended, we shattered all that awareness. We shed them so that we can constrict and become small. So on the way back, we're going to remember and reverse engineer this process. And as we reverse engineer it, it will be done by stage. It cannot happen all at once.
And it's beautiful then that the galactic masters who know and remember perhaps where we were are helping us, and maybe we in some level can help those in a lower dimension.
Or for that matter, your friends and your family that are around you. This is the whole point of alignment.
That's what Pierre says when the signal is broadcast.
Yeah.
That's why they say when the student is ready, the teacher is there. It's because it's a frequency connection.
Yeah. And Janice, this is the point. I mean, yes, we will reach the lower dimension. Yes, we will connect to the plants and the flowers. I remember years ago, my galactic sister, she had a crystal store, and I used to go into it and all that. And I had there were certain crystals, certain things, and I would look at them and she would say, "There you are, you're doing it." I said, "What?" She said, "The way you look at that crystal, that whatever it is that you're looking at, you inject so much energy into them. You're entraining that elemental force into a higher frequency." I didn't even realize I was doing it.
Well,
the intention and the love in your heart when you're examining that piece of crystal, you're in such awe and such love for it that you're elevating it. I remember somebody, a master teacher years ago, saying to me that as we ascend, Lucifer and all the fallen beings are cheering for us because in the process of ascension, we're going to elevate them.
It's inspiring.
So yes, we not only entrain the elemental forces, but we entrain the people that are around us by proximity. Sometimes, as I told you, one of the reasons I started going to the park and for my outside meditation, it's because when I sit next to people on the bench, suddenly, and as I extend my field and I do exactly that practice I just told you. But when I did the torsion field, particularly when COVID was going, people were distant from each other, I would do like an extended version of the torsion field. The first breath goes in, and I would spend 3 or 4 more breaths before the next guardian comes from the fifth dimension, and another 5 or 6 breaths before the next one. And as I do this for about 45 minutes, my field becomes so big that even the runners that were running, they sensed the energy by where I was sitting on the bench. As I opened my eyes, I didn't realize they were all doing it. When they were running, they come past in front of me, they would stop and namaste and keep running. I didn't even know what was going on.
Mm.
Wow.
I remember, I noticed it, and therefore a lot of people on the waterfront were the regulars. They know me because my eyes was always closed. I just went to my bench, and my 2 friends that I meet now, that I'm meeting with now, I met them on the waterfront because of this. My energy became so big. So you can entrain people. I remember one time, one experience I had, I walked in and I started doing my meditation. There was a woman that was reading. So we were one bench away from each other. This is at the height of the lockdown. So this woman was on my right, and she was reading a book. I came down, I sat down, I did this practice, and I did the torsion field. And as I'm doing it, I didn't open my eyes. I can feel somebody, I can hear somebody coming, sitting to my left. And my 45 minutes went through. I did everything that I was supposed to do. When I was done, and I opened my eyes, the woman to my right was snoring and fast asleep. The woman to my left had laid out on the bench, completely laid out. And when I was done, she felt that there was a shift in energy, and she woke up and she's stressed, and she looked at me with a big smile. And she said, "Thank you."
Wow. So it's not unconscious. It really is.
We are much more powerful than we think we are.
Mm.
Oh, here's a slightly loaded question. What about sex? What about tantric yoga? And what about this happening with sex?
Okay, so you have to be very careful, because God doesn't care about your sexuality or your sexual preference. God doesn't care. The only thing that God cares about, particularly when your torsion field is open, it overlaps into someone else's heart-to-heart, circle, center to center on somebody else's torsion field. When that happens, the heavens open and God celebrates. But when you are not in the same frequency and that doesn't happen, there is a disconnect, and it creates a backflow where darkness can enter. So if you are hedonistic and promiscuous, and to you, that's the thing, and particularly when for the youth who are interested in having a polyamorous relationship and multiple partners and all that matter, orgies and all that, when that occurs, you actually are bringing more and more people. It's very difficult for 2 people to have that perfect morphogenic blending heart to heart. When you bring more people in, it's more complicated. And if one person in the circle feels out of whack or disjointed and is not enjoying it, it will throw everybody else out.
That makes sense.
God doesn't care who you sleep with, but it cares deeply that it's a consensual and heart-to-heart connection, not a mechanical performance. If the connection is performance-driven, God is not in it. But when it comes from the heart, God is in it. Any other questions or comments? The reason I'm saying this is that because there's a lot of people out there that are talking about tantric sex and tantric this and all of that, and it's a buzzword, and sacred sexuality, and a lot of them are recruiting people for polyamorous and hedonistic circles. And a lot of them are ritualizing that environment by calling spirit and gods to so-called consecrated and all of that. What they're doing is that they are courting people with a fallen energy in a dark circle, and these people are prisoners. They're enchained.
It's terrible.
But sex sell, and a lot of youth, a lot of Generation Z and a lot of millennial are getting caught up in all of this.
Yeah, and I guess with the ayahuasca,
Well,
too.
that's a different story as well. Medicine and all of that. That's a different class. I don't want to get into that whole
Yeah.
wax right now. But since you asked about the tantric stuff, I be careful. Tantric stuff is a sacred path. But when you see people that are mixing, you know, and in Tibet and in India, this is something that's very holy. It's extremely sacred.
Right.
And if done correctly, you elevate and you ascend. But what people don't understand, true tantric goal, it's not about having fabulous sex. Actually, if you notice, Gandhi was trying to do it. He was never successful. But true tantric goal is to need no sex. It's actually ultimately the art of pure celibacy.
Mm.
You start with the sexual stuff and you get to a point where you learn how to recycle the flow and the energy where you don't need it anymore.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that part of the program what the priests want to achieve
Say that again?
in the Catholic Church? They don't
Yes.
want the priests to marry. Is that
No,
I
it's
mean,
not the same.
I know there was another agenda for this.
Yes.
But is that part of it too? No.
No, the church is doing it for other reasons. The Catholic Church is doing it for other reasons. It has nothing to do with tantric. Very few people can really practice tantric yoga. Okay, in India or in Tibet, people who are doing it or really doing it, ultimately they go into a constant sleep because they're recycling their own energy. They don't need to ejaculate. They don't need to do any. They don't need to, because they're recycling it. They bring it back into the top of their head, and the Kundalini gets recycled. And when that happens, there is no necessity for it. But that's not what the youth who are coming, they're doing tantric. That's not what they're doing. So if you are invited to this circle, be careful. They're gonna try to recruit you for some sort of like group sex or orgy thing. I mean, we need to talk about this thing because we're living in the real world. And we're going to encounter people who are going to say these buzz things. And as a spiritual being, we need to understand what we're getting ourselves into. And the ones that I have met that were trying to do this, when they invoke whatever it is that they were invoking, they were not. There was nothing celestial or holy about what they were doing. They were courting these people to become slave in that circle, to be bound. They were courting people.
Mm.
But if you don't have the discernment to know this, you get caught and you'll get trapped. And it takes a lot of effort once you have agreed and participated in this circle, it takes a lot of effort to, then it becomes a negative karma to undo the tie and the cord. Now, remember, karma in Sanskrit, karma means to make or to do. In Hebrew, the word is tikkun. It means to correct or to repair. I don't want you to think of karma as being a passive, I'm paying for my karma, therefore I'm going to get kicked in the butt. When you notice something is out of whack, you correct and you repair. And the moment the correction is made, the karma is gone. So from that perspective, dealing with your karma is not negative. It's actually to do the repair that is needed so that you can elevate and you can become, instead of singularity of consciousness, a multiplicity of awareness. Any other questions or comments? All right, let's take a 5-minute break and then we'll do a closing meditation in the back end. Five minutes. Take a very deep and slow breath. And as you inhale and exhale deeply and slowly, allow the universal life force that permeates everything to enter into your lungs. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And let your soul and your awareness drop in the middle of your chest. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Let your heart and your mind sync with each other. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And become aware of your entire chakra column or Antakarana in all dimensions of time and space. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Now take a breath from the core of the earth and let this breath move through the bottom of your feet, passing to your core as you continue to draw the breath and inhale, and let it now exit outside of your head and pause. And now exhale completely as you empty your lungs and pause. Wait for the healing and the repairs and the solution set, and inhale that blessing. Take a deep breath. And bring the healing and the repair that you need. Now pause. Exhale completely as you let it drop into the very core and center of the earth. and pause again. Inhale once more from the core of the earth and let this breath move through the bottom of your feet, passing through your entire core. And pause. And let it exhale. Begin to exhale and project it outside of your head and let it go back into the bosom of God. And pause. Let the healing and the repairs that you need come to you. Inhale that blessing deeply and let it cascade into the top of your head and into your body, bringing love and healing. And let it pause now. And then exhale completely and let it be projected into the core of the earth. Let go. Take another breath from the core of the earth and let the breath move through the bottom of your feet, passing through your body, dislodging all fears. Now pause. Exhale completely as you push that energy outside of your head and let it all go into source. Exhale completely, let go, surrender, pause. And when the healing and the repairs begin to touch you, inhale from source and bring that blessing into your body. As you fill your lung at capacity and pause. And now exhale as you drop that energy and project it into the core of the earth. And pause. Inhale deeply from the core of the earth and let this breath move through the bottom of your feet, passing through you. Fill your lung at capacity and then pause. Now allow yourself to begin to exhale as you project all of that release into source. Exhale completely. Surrender and let go. Let the benevolence and the kindness coming from source enter your body as you inhale deeply and bring this cascade of love. Inhale all of it and bring it into your body. Pause. Now begin to exhale and release all of this through your body and into the core of the earth. Surrender and let go. Release everything. Now take a breath from the core of the earth and let this breath begin to rise, passing to the bottom of your feet, moving through your core as your lung fill to capacity. Pause. Now begin to exhale as you let that energy rise and go into source and be released completely. Exhale, let go. And pause. Take another breath from source and let this breath cascade down from source, bringing kindness and benevolence into your being. Pause. And begin to exhale as you drop this energy through your body and through the core of the earth. Exhale completely and pause. Take another breath from the core of the earth and let this breath move through from the core of the earth to the bottom of your feet, passing through you. Fill your lung at capacity. Pause. Now exhale completely as you let the energy rise and go into source. Empty your lungs. Release, let go. Pause. Let the kindness and the benevolence of the uncreated touch you. Inhale deeply and bring that goodness into your body to the top of your head, passing through you. Now pause. And begin to exhale as you drop this energy through your entire body and let it ground into the very core of the earth. Now become aware of your Antakarana or rainbow bridge. Your entire core, especially your 3D body and core. Listen. Listen as if the more than 50 trillion cells that are in your core had ears. What information insights and knowing that this part of your body is trying to share with you. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. Thank you for the blessings. I accept the gifts and I receive with gratitude. Take a very deep and slow breath. And whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes.
That was beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you.
Yes, the connection was very powerful. That column felt very strong.
Yes. And I put words to it.
Yes, 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 yes. Again, it doesn't have to take as long because when I'm speaking it takes longer, but it should take you no more than 15 to 20 minutes to do. And if you can do this, it's gonna ground you, and the afterglow remains for hours.
And it will help us become more socially intelligent as a result.
Well, it will, because what happened is that you're gonna be so connected to yourself
Yeah.
and to your truth that you will begin to sense and know. And particularly when you do the assessment of your core, you will know I'm not supposed to be, I'm being petty. I'm trying to control. I have to let go of all of this.
Right.
All right, family. I want to thank you all for listening. I'm sending you my deepest love. Uh, uh, if you're on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to the channel. To all of you here tonight on Patreon, love you as well. Thank you for your support. Thank you, everyone. You all have a good night, and I'll talk to you next week. Deep love to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Love you all.
Love